the wages that are on offer. However, if you look at the relationship between Manchester United and Borussia Dortmund, it's quite good. Because last season, you'll remember, they all organised the deal whereby Jadon Sancho went from Old Trafford to Borussia Dortmund. And look how well that worked out for Sancho. And in the end, look how well that worked out for United and, of course, for Borussia Dortmund as well. As far as Rashford's camp is concerned, we do know what's been happening. All of the communication so far has been done via them. It hasn't really been club to club yet. And they have been speaking to clubs in Italy, to clubs in Spain as well. As far as United are concerned, if they are to allow this guy to leave, they would prefer a straight loan. Get him playing football, get him to raise his market value, and then they can reassess Marcus Rashford's future in the summer. And while United accept that any kind of loan deal will involve them paying a huge portion of Marcus Rashford's wages, we'll talk about this a bit later on, but there are certain ways you can do these kind of deals where you can incentivise the wages, incentivise the performances, whereby the club who's allowing someone like Marcus Rashford to leave can still get good money for him.
James, does Rashford need to go abroad? Is that going to be better for him than staying here, playing for another Premier League club?
I think you'd have to say yes, really. It feels like it's a player that just needs rejuvenation in his life. He needs a fresh start. He needs a fresh focus. A lot of attention here in the UK, as we know, by the British media. We're talking about him here. He's filled the back pages for weeks now, it feels like, certainly since he decided to do that interview with Henry Winter. The opportunity to go abroad seems like that's a right fit. AC Milan, as Dharmesh mentioned originally, are interested in him, want to do a deal for him and have an opportunity to sign him. They've got an opportunity to sign one UK or Albanian player in this window. Now, that sounds really strange, but that's all down to non-EU players and Serie A regulations that they have. They can only make a certain amount of signings. So per season, normally they can sign 3 non-EU players plus one player from Britain or Albania. Now, that varies depending on what clubs have, how many non-EU players they've got in the squad already. So for AC Milan, for example, they made 2 signings in the summer. That was all they could make. They've only got this one little signing available to them, which is a British player. Hence why Marcus Rashford is one of the names mentioned. And it seems like that would be a good fit for him.
So if it is Marcus Rashford to Milan, where does that leave Kyle Walker?
Well, what I was saying there, it means Kyle Walker won't be going to Milan. And it feels like AC Milan now are focusing their attention on a forward and on potentially bringing in Marcus Rashford. There isn't room for 2 British players. Now, I mentioned the regulations. If AC Milan were to sell a non-EU player, that wouldn't open up an opportunity to bring in another player. It doesn't work like that in Serie A according to the regulations. So for Kyle Walker, AC Milan might not be the destination. There's plenty of other destinations for a 34-year-old experienced right-back who's won pretty much everything, certainly everything at club level in the game, and the likes of Inter Milan, Bayern Munich, Saudi Arabia clubs would be interested. I've read a report that Real Madrid might be interested in bringing him on loan for the remaining 6 months of the season. There will be opportunities for Kyle Walker in this window, there's no doubt about it.
OK. Well, as things stand, Walker remains a City player. Pep Guardiola hasn't decided if he'll feature against Brentford tomorrow, but did reveal that defensive reinforcements are a priority in this window.
Just on Kyle Walker, is there any update at all?
No.
And is he going to be included in your squad for tomorrow?
No news.
Will he be in your squad tomorrow?
Oh, we'll decide afternoon, after training.
If he doesn't play, who plays right back? Rico?
I said what I said. I don't going to add anything else. I don't have any news, so it's Brentford in my mind.
Again, the development since I last spoke to you about this is that obviously what's happened with Kyle and potentially leaving. Does that mean that defensive reinforcements for you become the priority this month?
When we are from the beginning of the season, it was the back in the middle, yeah. There's a position up front. We are more or less okay, but back all the season we struggle a lot. Yeah.
Struggling at the back, he says. They've been linked with Abdul Kadir Kusanov. What's happening with that deal?
Yeah, we understand he's due to arrive in the UK to complete this deal, a deal worth around £33.5 million. 20-year-old defender Interesting with him. In 2023, Lens signed him for €100,000. They're potentially selling him for 33.5 million. Incredible profit, a young player. It's probably not necessarily a signing for right this second. Having said that, because of City's injury issues, the likes of Ruben Dias, John Stones, even Akanji, Ake, both have injury issues this season. There certainly could be opportunities for game time, but this is one that looks to be someone for the future. And that's something, look, we're going to see a lot of from Manchester City. We talked about bringing in a forward in Mamouche, talking about a centre-back, a young centre-back. This is a period now for Manchester City where they're going to have to change their squad around. They're going to have to
just said
rebuild.
he wants people in the middle. He wants midfielders as well.
That's going to have to be next on the list as well. And when they're missing, we're talking about it earlier, any club missing a player like Rodri, there's a glaring hole in that centre of the park. And there's a lot of experience in the Manchester City side, but there's also a lot of age on the other side of probably where Pep Guardiola wants his squad to be. So again, if they manage to get Mamouche over the line, if they manage to get Kusanov over the line, there's still plenty of time in this window, and Manchester City got plenty of funds still to spend, and a midfielder will certainly be an area they'll be looking at.
Definitely keep an eye on that. What about, let's go back to Manchester United. Anthony, is he leaving?
So we told you last week that clubs from Spain and Greece had approached Manchester United over the potential signing of Anthony. We think it would probably be a loan deal at this stage. Well, I can tell you that the clubs that we've been told now are Real Betis and Olympiacos, who have made those inquiries. Now, in fairness to Anthony, he's actually been featuring in nearly all of Ruben Amorim's squad, but he still hasn't started a Premier League game under Ruben Amorim. But not just that, he hadn't started a Premier League game under Erik ten Hag this season. So it seemed like Manchester United were edging towards, let's see if we can do some sort of deal to raise the market value. Clearly, United are not going to get anywhere near, if and when they decide to sell him permanently, the 80-odd million pounds that they spent on him to Ajax, 2 summers ago. That simply isn't going to happen. But it's clear now that they will consider offers for Anthony. As I said, the most likely idea would be a loan. And it's interesting because Real Betis have recently sold one of their wingers, Hassan Diao, to Como, which is why there might be a space and Anthony could be the one to fill it.
James, I want to talk Aston Villa. What are they up to?
Yeah, Aston Villa making moves, should we say, in this window. Daniel Marlon, actually, news reaching us earlier today. I'm just going to turn my page over. Borussia Dortmund actually posted this on their social media. They announced that he's not part of the travelling squad for their next game against Holstein Kiel, and that's tomorrow night. They say they've allowed the player to leave for talks. Now, we understand that Aston Villa have agreed a deal to sign the forward from Borussia Dortmund in a deal worth around £20 million. 25-year-old Dutchman has played in 14 Bundesliga games this season, appeared for the club in the Champions League, 5 goals this season. You feel like it's a signing that Unai Emery would be looking at to get into the squad and certainly offer competition for places on those wide areas. But yeah, big move for Aston Villa straight away in the window, trying to get the deals done as early in January as they possibly can.
I'm just picking up what James is saying there. While Daniel Marlon could be on his way in to Villa Park, we're still waiting for confirmation that Jadon Philogene has officially left Aston Villa for Ipswich Town. Now, Ipswich still remain hopeful of completing that deal. We were expecting it to go through last week, but there's still, I'm told, some details to be ironed out before that deal can be formally rubber stamped. He's passed his medical already. He did that last week. He's already agreed terms on a 4.5-year contract. The fee is worth over £20 million, including performance-related add-ons. And this is a player that there's been a long-standing interest in. Ipswich actually agreed a deal with Hull City in the summer, and they thought they were going to get him then. But Aston Villa had the option to trigger a matching clause, which they did, hoping that Philogene would live up to the potential that Unai Emery saw in him. And Unai Emery was pretty honest. He says, I don't think he has, so maybe he does need to move on. So they've decided Marlon is on his way in and Philogene could be on his way out. Hasn't really worked out for him at Villa, but we're just waiting now for these details to be ironed out before Ipswich can officially call him an Ipswich Town player.
I've got to say, the club made a decent profit in 6 months on him and will make a good profit on him in 6 months. And the Marlon deal is not in terms of Philogene's out, Marlon comes in. Marlon will offer potential competition, and Unai Emery want him to play, not necessarily sit in the background like Philogene was doing this season.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have news from all 20 clubs in our Premier League wrap next. And Enzo Maresca admits that he feels shame over the way one of his players has been treated. That's coming next in a moment.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. It's time now to go around the clubs. Dharmesh, take it away. That's what
James.
you wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah, thanks very much. It was always going to be a reactive window for Arsenal. They're now waiting to find out the extent of the knee injury suffered by Gabriel Jesus in yesterday's FA Cup penalty shootout defeat against Manchester United.
Yeah, Aston Villa have agreed a deal worth just over £20 million with Borussia Dortmund for forward Daniel Marlon, and Dortmund have left him out of tomorrow's squad.
Valencia have agreed a loan deal for Bournemouth right-back Max Aarons.
Borussia Dortmund, they're going to be the talk of tonight, I think, are interested in Brentford striker Kevin Schade, but Thomas Frank has insisted he's not interested in selling anyone this month.
Brighton boss Fabian Hürzeler has full confidence in the recruitment team making the right calls in this window. Could Evan Ferguson, though, leave on loan?
Borussia Dortmund, see, told you, are in talks with Chelsea over the potential loan deals of Carney Chukwuemeka and Renato Vega.
Crystal Palace have triggered the release clause of Millwall's Roman Esse. Esse is not in the squad for tonight's FA Cup tie against Dagenham and Redbridge.
Everton want to sign Leon winger Ernest Nuamah. Discussions are ongoing.
Fulham boss Marco Silva has dismissed reports linking Andreas Pereira with Brazilian club Palmeiras amid reports of a second bid worth £20.5 million for the midfielder.
Talk about this earlier. Ipswich Town remain hopeful of completing a deal for Aston Villa forward Jadon Philogene.
Leicester City are closing in on the signing of Parma right-back Woyo Koulibaly. They also want to sign a left winger and a central back.
Kilmarnock have completed the loan signing of Liverpool right-back Calvin Ramsey for the rest of the season.
Manchester City held further talks with Eintracht Frankfurt over Omar
Mamouche?
What is it?
Mamouche.
Omar Mamouche today.
We were singing the song, Mamouche, Mamouche, Mamouche is on fire.
A deal could be completed in the next couple of days, unlike me.
AC Milan are expected to formally approach Manchester United over a deal for Marcus Rashford. He was left out of the squad in yesterday's FA Cup victory against Arsenal.
Newcastle boss Eddie Howe is still hopeful keeper Martin Dubravka will sign a new contract at the club.
Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi is one striker being considered by West Ham.
Southampton will only consider a permanent sale of forward Kamaldeen Sulemana amid interest from Ajax, Genoa and Nantes.
Tottenham centre-back Alfie Dorrington has chosen to join Aberdeen on loan until the rest of the season.
West Ham United boss Graham Potter said it would be logical to sign a forward this window. Mikel Antonio, Jared Bowen, Crescencio Somerville and Nicholas Füllkrug are all injured.
A lot of injuries. And finally, Wolves striker Mateus Cunha is expected to stay at Wolves as he continues to consider his options over a long-term contract at the club.
Now, the focus at Chelsea is going to be outgoings this month. Ben Chilwell and Renato Vega, two who could leave. Here's Enzo Maresca.
Chilwell is top fullback, probably doing that kind of job up and down, and give him the opportunity in the past to win titles, to be with the international team. But I struggle to see Ben doing different kind of things. At the moment, I'm not aware that there is an agreement for Renato. The only thing I can say is that yesterday he was here with us working. Today he will be here with us. So that means that at the moment it's our player, and then we see if something happens.
I presume he also wants to play regularly as well, does he?
Yeah, but I said many times I also want long hair. But we have more than 20 players, 25 players, and they all want to play, but it's not possible.
So, James, Maresca says he isn't aware of any talks. Is that your understanding?
Managers always say they're not aware of any talks, or they completely dismiss us when we ask those questions in press conference. Now, my understanding through Sky Germany, they're reporting Borussia Dortmund actually opened talks with Chelsea over a potential loan deal for Renato Vega. Now, Dortmund want that deal to include certain options to buy the player. Might not necessarily be an obligation or a permanent transfer in this window, but certainly in the future. Now, we understand Vega is said to have agreed in principle with the idea to join Dortmund. Now, Now, let's not forget this is a player that joined the club just in the summer. Hasn't played too much. I think about 7 appearances in the Premier League so far. Interesting what Maresca was talking about him and saying, well, actually, we are developing him. We think we know his best position. He's still young. He's still, 21 years old. Lots to learn, lots to improve upon. But this is also Chelsea. We know how many players they've got in their squad, and if the right offer is there for one of their players, then never really been too reluctant to sell. So we'll have to wait and see.
What about Ben Chilwell? Why hasn't there been more interest in him?
Yeah, Ben Chilwell's an interesting one. It's almost, it feels really bad saying this, but it's almost a player you forget is still at Chelsea. He's made 1 appearance this season. That was in the EFL Cup. We know he's had injury problems throughout his time at Chelsea, but only a couple of years ago, he signed a 2-year extension to his 5-year contract. So he's under contract still for another 2.5 years at Chelsea. He's paid over £200,000 a week. So it's a lot of money that Chelsea actually would probably like to
So
take.
is that the key? He's paid so much. Actually getting him out of the club is going to be difficult because people won't be able to match that.
I think it'll be the key for the player, making sure that it's the right opportunity for him. He's 28 years old. Has he got ambition to still play football? I can imagine he definitely has, knowing what the player is like. The deal in terms of the transfer fee that Chelsea would expect, I wouldn't expect it to be too high, so I don't think that will be an issue for any club willing to look at this player. But it's a player that Enzo Maresca, you heard him in his press conference, wasn't particularly complimentary, really. He said he feels a shame about it, but then went on to say all he pretty much does is go up and down, which to me sounds pretty disrespectful from a manager to one of his players.
You say that, but for journalists, when we're at press conferences with Enzo Maresca, you know, if you ask him a question, he's going to be completely honest. And he's maintained from the start when he's been there, with the massive squad that he's had, he's almost said, I've got 2 sets of players that I need to keep happy. But there are certain players that aren't going to have a future here. So it's clear, and it happens in football. Those players will have to get moved on. Now, with regard to Ben Chilwell, because Chelsea have made it clear that they're willing to let him go, if you are then a club that wants to bring in Ben Chilwell, you can just say, well, we can probably get a good deal here. Because you're talking about the wages that Ben Chilwell is on. If a club wants to go in with a loan deal of some sort, they'll think, well, you can stump up the majority of the wages because whatever we pay will be less money than you're paying at the moment. So, you know, they could go in with a cheeky, we'll take him on loan, but we'll pay 30% of the wages. Can you cover the rest? And Chelsea, because they want Chilwell out, might have to consider offers that they might not have had to consider a little while ago. But because the squad is in the state that it's in, and Enzo Maresca is now streamlining it to what he wants, and he's decided these players are just not going to have a future here, that's what's going to happen for Chelsea. Now, there's going to be a situation where they're going to have to do deals that maybe aren't really that beneficial to the club, but in the longer term, it will help them out.
I think for a new manager, bear in mind, he's still a new manager at Chelsea. He's come in, he's got quite a bit of power he's been given, a lot of responsibility.
But he's also going well. He's
going well, so he's earned that faith and trust that his decisions actually are working in which personnel he wants into the side in which he doesn't. So, yeah, there's no surprise really to see that Ben Chilwell won't necessarily...
Who was that Chelsea player who was there for years they couldn't get rid of?
Winston
Bogarde.
That's it. Loved him. Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, has the last week changed Arsenal's plans for the window? And could Tottenham and Manchester United miss out on a forward? That and more to come. See you in a moment.